Hello. My name is Kimberly Quinn, and I am your hostess with the mostest for the Mindcraft podcast. Mindcraft is all about becoming the boss of your brain. And it actually stemmed out of a course I teach here at the beautiful Champlain College in Burlington, Vermont, which is about just that, learning all the different ways to just sort of live your best life, really, to be honest. So today, what I kind of want to talk about is something very, very basic, and it's also a cornerstone to the course, which is sort of the idea of mindfulness. And because I think lots of people get confused about this, as confused sort of with the different forms or methods or types of meditation, and mindfulness really isn't. It kind of stands alone, I guess. I think of it as meditation on the go because it's not really like you have to sit in a cave as a Zen monk, eating yogurt. I mean, not that we don't love monks, but we really don't need to do that. It's also not even referred to as a meditation always. Sometimes you'll hear it as mindfulness meditation, but really it's its own thing because to be mindful is simply to be present in this moment without judgment. That's the biggie, and as if your life depended on it. And that's sort of a paraphrase of John Kabat-Zinn, who's the master himself. And I guess the reason I like it so much is I like it that it's about being alert and awake and attentive, because whatever we're paying attention to is all that's going to make it into long-term memory. That's just a fact. And I guess that's I have a doctorate in cognitive psychology, and I'm all about the memory, right? And so, especially being at a college here, because as professors, and I'm the student, and we're really kind of all wasting our time if we are allowing the working memory to be all clogged up with anxiety and preoccupation, and all the what if thinking and the catastrophizing and all the junk, right? And so, mindfulness is really good about clearing out the working memory so that we can now be in a place to take in new information. And so paying attention, what we attenuate to, of course, attenuate is just sort of like a sexy 14-carat word for pay attention. What we're paying attention to is all that really creates the memories. And so that's super important. And I also like the part of mindfulness where John Kabat-Zinn talks about it being non-judgmental, because a lot of these other meditations, and we're not going to poo-poo those, because it's kind of like food taste or movie taste. One might suit one might suit another. And if that fits for you, that's just fantastic. There are sitting ones and walking ones and river ones and mountain ones and blah, 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 blah. But what I like about mindfulness is, unlike the others, those forms of meditation are typically sort of trying to create a thought vacuum. And mindfulness is the opposite of that. Mindfulness sort of acknowledges, kind of like waves in the ocean. Thoughts are going to keep, up and down. The waves are going to keep happening. The waves of thought are going to keep happening. And so, John Kabat-Zinn would just say, since we know the waves of thought are going to keep happening, you may as well learn to surf. And so, in my own classes, and Mindcraft and also cognitive psych, we start the beginning of every single class with 1 minute of mindfulness after, of course, students, kind of learn about what it is. And I emphasize this a lot, that mindfulness is not something you can do wrong. And it's amazing when I say this, that students kind of light up, because I think in this day and age, college students just have so much on their minds, and to know that there's something they cannot fail at is enormously relieving, I think. You're just doing the best you can. You're setting the bar at do your best instead of that P word, perfection, which is horribly abusive, right? Just set it at do your best. And so if you can be more present in this moment right now than you were this morning, for example, then you're successful. If you had a fast mind for a little while, for the first part of the day, start over. So this is the part about the non-judgment, is when we're sitting there during that minute, and let's say an anxious thought comes through, I just explain to my students, okay, you just acknowledge that and say, all right, apparently I'm nervous today. I just had an anxious thought. It was followed by another one. Apparently I've got stuff on my mind. So what? Who cares? And welcome to the human race. And it seems sort of counterintuitive to just kind of let it go like that, embrace it like that. But quite honestly, that's how anxiety goes away more quickly. And actually, what just came into my mind at this minute is an example that John Kabat-Zinn uses when he talks about when we are being mindful and anxiety sort of knocks at the door. He says, to treat anxiety like you wouldn't sort of an unwanted guest. So I say to my students, pretend like you're in your dorm, right? You can, if you're seasoned grown-ups, you can think about your neighborhood or something like that. And there's somebody in the neighborhood or on the floor who's kind of annoying, talks too much, not a bad person, but they're just kind of like take a lot of energy. But you don't want to be cruel and mean. And so you've got this plan with your friends to have, let's say, movie night, and you've got the artichoke dip and the chicken wings and everything. And so here she comes down the hall or up the road, ready to just chat with you. And so instead of you and your friends diving into a closet or under the couch and grabbing the artichoke dip and the pizza and the wings and going through all that energy to kind of pull the drapes and pretend like so she doesn't hear you and you're not hurting her feelings, but you're dodging the bullet, right? Instead of all that energy, just let her stand in the doorway for a second and talk, and let her just kind of do her thing. And then just sort of acknowledge that static, and then let her go on her way. And that's kind of similar to what the waves are. And so just to recap so far, mindfulness is about being awake and alert, focused, paying attention. It's also non-judgmental. It's not there I go again, I can't even do this right. It's the opposite. It's there I go again. I'm anxious. So is most people have experienced it. Who cares? And then the last thing about it, there are more things about it, but I like the part that it's on the go. And so students will often laugh because when I ask them, think of some things you can do that are mindful, and they really kind of get stuck for a minute. I say, don't overthink. Think about just your day, and they say brushing your teeth. Right. If you're going to brush your teeth, just brush your teeth instead of thinking about the class you have next or whatever you didn't do or where you're going to have lunch with or whatever. And then I'll ask them, this is day one, so I get a lot of looks. I'll say, how many people did you have in the shower with you this morning? And they're looking at me like we've known each other for about 17 minutes. This is a little personal, right? And actually, I can't even take the credit. I borrowed that from John Kabat-Zinn. But they look at me and say, well, how many people did you have in the shower with you? If you think about it, you might have had classmates in there. You might have had a little awkward, but you might have had your parents in there or whatever, because that's where your head went. That's where your head went. And then I make a joke. I said, unless it was somebody real, then good for you. It's college. But the truth is, rather than invite half the world into the shower with you, to maybe just take that 10 minutes. I mean, it's not long when you're in college. You have time, right? And just feel that hot water running down your back. Smell the perfumed shampoo, right? It has a scent. Feel the suds and just focus on the steam and just the pure joy of just being in that shower for 10 minutes. Totally, totally. And I'm here with Ian the Wonderful here, who's helping me out to get this message out. And I want to just ask you, Ian, what about the shower experience? You with me on that one?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. When I go in the shower, I think of it as a time for me to like take a deep breath, clean whatever I need to clean, and kind of just like have a mental break from whatever else is going on that day, and kind of just prepare myself for whatever I'm doing after.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. And I'll say that was a great job there, Ian, because and Ian's a senior. I have well, Minecraft's a big mix. I have a lot of first years, but they are so not in their heads. And I'll tell you actually, just stay with the mindfulness thing, but just Ian, just I don't know, something you said made me think of it. The whole reason I designed Minecraft was because I noticed my students were not in the moment at all. And they were talking so much about their anxiety. and also depressions, which are just two sides of the same coin. You can't have one without the other, right?
Definitely.
And I sort of in response to all this talk, they were saying anxiety, they were saying depression, and all the other words, just a lot of what if thinking, a lot of catastrophizing, just a lot of, and of course, while that's happening, we started talking about our life minutes, right? There's only so many. And we tend to think that they're infinite, and they're not. And especially at younger ages, we really tend to think they're infinite. And really, Ian, why I designed the course, and I was so on fire with it, I pretty much put it together in a weekend. I mean, it did come out of a previous class. That's not entirely true, but I was so full throttle on a mission to get this here at Champlain College that I was just like pedal to the metal, to crank it out.
Mhm.
And so we have all kinds of, not only do we have all kinds of mindfulness activities in the course, but I also have some tried and true anxiety hacks that I came up with myself. So the reason I'm throwing that in there is because it circles back to the whole mindfulness thing, because we start talking about when we allow, okay, this is what it comes down to. There are only two choices, because Minecraft's about becoming the boss of your brain, right? There are only two choices. Either we control our thoughts, or what's the other option?
Our thoughts control us.
Awesome, that's right. Now, which is more pleasant, Ian? Tell me.
Us controlling our thoughts. Because who wants to be controlled?
Right on. And that's a great answer, because here's the thing. As simple as that is, that idea, we're not doing it most of the time. We're allowing, and the word is allow, right? We're the captains of our own ship,
Mm-hmm.
but we're not always actively engaged in that. And then we talk about our life minutes being so precious. And I'll tell you a little something. I was actually at a conference this past weekend, and with very brilliant seasoned adults. I'm just separating that from young adults. Brilliant young adults too, but age-wise, right?
Yeah.
And I did something with them. I asked the person leading if I could just have 5 minutes, right? 5 life minutes. He said, sure. And so at the end of the course, this pertains to mindfulness, I give each of my Minecrafters this huge fake $1 million bill. And I write across the top of it, we'll just use Ian here. I do it ahead of time so they don't know. So I would have already written on it, Ian, in nice ink, spend your life minutes as if they're cash. And I look them right in the eye, because I teach in a semicircle. They're not in the middle school format, which I despise. They're all in a semicircle. I go up to each one, I'm looking right in the eyes and say, Ian, spend your life minutes as if they're cash. And then they take it. And I've had students come back to me later on after they've graduated and stuff, and they still have it framed somewhere. Wow. It's just kind of like, it's serious. That's real. And so, because it just reminds us that if we are not being present, which is being mindful, right? If we are not being present, we're missing out on our lives. It's that simple, and we're not getting them back. Mm-hmm. Those life minutes are circling the drain, and there's nothing more important than a life minute. Right, precious. And obviously, since they're our most valued commodity, we really can't put a value on them, because you can't. It's your life, right? Mm-hmm. So the cash thing was the closest thing I could come up with, because, and I asked them this too. I'll say, this is how that makes sense with the spend your life minutes as if they're cash. I said, would you walk around a yard sale, first of all, wasting your life minutes, looking at an old sweater with 3 holes in it, and then give the person $200? Like, would you spend $200 on a sweater with 3 holes in it?
No.
Not unless it belonged to like a former president or something.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. But if it just belonged to a rando, nothing special about it, probably not. Right. So, so that's how it comes down to it, is not only being mindful, which means being present, being alert and engaged in your life at this moment without judging yourself for any of it. Right. And also being conscious of the life minutes having a limited amount, right? And so really sort of becoming more selective about how you choose to spend your life minutes. And then from there, we have the whole rest of the semester, because that's just day one. We get into later, we're going to do a whole lot of episodes here, but how that is affected by screen time and So really one of the biggest, or probably the biggest thief of life minutes. What do you think that is? I just gave you a little hint right there.
Worrying about the future.
Oh, that too, definitely.
Being on your phone.
Totally. So the cell phone thing, and I'm not saying cell phones don't have a place, right? Because I know your generation often thinks that we seasoned folks are super anti-phone, and there's some truth to that because we've seen the damage it's done.
Mhm.
I also did research on it 4 years ago, so I know for a fact that it's damaging people. We'll talk about that later. But autopilot too. So when you said about the future, yes, that so autopilot, which means is the opposite of being mindful. Autopilot's just zoning out. We're not talking about authentic relaxation. That's different. If you actually know you're going for a walk or that's not the same. It's just that zone out or that Netflix binge, that's a thief of our life minutes. And when you said thinking about or how'd you put that with the future? Just kind of like obsessing?
Just worrying about the future.
Worrying. That was the word. Yes. Good one. Okay. So that's going to be like a super nice segue into the next episode because, and Ian just helped me with that because I'm not wired for lies and I did not have that plan at this minute, but it's a good segue because Ian's word choice was a good one because anxiety, I think of anxiety as like a fire hydrant. You know, I'm picturing New York because I'm from down that way. So I'm picturing the Bronx actually. If in the summer, if you've ever experienced a fire hydrant, like the firefighters cleaning it, have you ever seen it where it's like it comes out at unbelievable speed?
I don't think I've seen it in person, but I've seen it like in movies.
Movies?
Yeah.
Well, you get it. The whole point is the power.
Yeah.
Okay. So even if you haven't seen it in person, because going through the Bronx in the summer, they do that on purpose. Little kids can play in there when it's dastardly hot. But the point is the power of it, because anyone who's experienced anxiety knows it's powerful. I often correct people very politely and with kindness when they say, "Oh, that's just my anxiety." Just your anxiety can be crippling. Anybody who experiences it knows that it's a thief of life minutes, like you were saying. And if it happens, because there's generalized, right, and then there's phobias, and there's panic, and then there's OCT. I renamed that because I don't do the word disorder. We'll talk about it next time. Anybody who's had any of those 4 ways to be in mental jail, you don't want to say just anxiety because it's a life minute thief. So you're spot on with that. So to lead in for the next time, the worry, the word worry that Ian just chose, worrying is actually rehearsing anxiety or practicing anxiety. So what happens when we practice anything?
Get better at it.
Absolutely. We can become better at skiing. We can become better at cooking. We can become better at robbing banks, and we can be better at being anxious if we just practice it enough. So worrying is actually like a rehearsal. And how often times do we rehearse all the potential scenarios for something? And then what? Does it happen?
No.
No, of course it doesn't. For the most part, no, it doesn't. But like we're ready, right? We're like ready just in case.
In case it happens.
In case it happens. I know what to do and I'll be prepared. Like the Boy Scouts. Like I'm ready. Yeah, no. But it doesn't happen. So life minutes are like down the drain, never to return. So this lead in with mindfulness, which is being present, is going to lead into the anxiety thing and also what I tell my students, and then we'll hang up in just a sec, is that if you are actually immersed in the present moment, I mean 100% in, not like 97, there can't be any anxiety. It's not possible. The mind can focus on one thing at a time. So, I tell them unless you're being beaten with a spiked club, which I don't see, there is no anxiety. And if you're fully committed to the present moment. So then next time what we'll do is we'll talk about what anxiety does in the brain and the different types. I gave you a little tidbit just now. And then I've got a couple of tried and true anxiety hacks that my students have told me over the long time now that they really, really work. They work for most people. Then we'll do a little disclaimer around that next time. And I also have some seasoned adult friends who also say that they work like a charm. And so that'll be the plan for next time. So I guess this is Kimberly Quinn and
Ian Lawler
signing off from the beautiful Champlain College campus in Burlington, Vermont. Have a mindful day.
Thank you for listening.